Hello YouTube and welcome to my very first Retrommendation. What is that, you may ask? Well, a Retrommendation is where I review an old game, at least 10 years old, probably much older than that, and let you guys know my impressions of it. We're kicking things off with a Master System game. What is the Master System? Well, for those of you who don't know, it's Sega's answer to the NES and the precursor to the Sega Genesis. The first game under scrutiny? Zillion. Zillion is the premier microwave simulator of 1987. Our journey begins about 400 years from now on the oh-so-creatively named Planet X. Humanity has been out colonizing other planets, spreading as we do, and encountered the Noza, a bunch of xenophobic robots hell-bent on the destruction of all humans. Lazy plot device, yada yada, gotta stop them.
Rada.
The mission basis is simple. The hero, JJ, is to infiltrate the base and subsequently destroy it. To accomplish this feat, he needs to collect 5 floppy disks. This futuristic race of robots somehow decided that its best-kept secrets were safest in 6 megabytes of Apple IIe goodness. These things are white with tinges of green or pink. Apple is obviously responsible. JJ's colleagues, Apple and Champ, have been captured by the Noza and stuffed into shower stalls of doom. It's up to JJ to save them while taking care of everything else. You know, should you feel like it. This doesn't really lend itself to the premise of the game, but it does lend itself to the gameplay, as I'll explain in a moment. Zillion is quite visually appealing. The sprites are detailed and well animated. My only real gripe is that there are more hero sprites than enemy sprites. 3 playable characters, 1 enemy throughout the game until the final boss. However, when enemies die, you're given a real sense of power. A little explosion for every enemy destroyed with a great sound to accompany. As for the music, there are only a handful of tracks in the game, and you'll spend the majority of your time hearing the same tune over and over. Fortunately, it's catchy and enjoyable. Breaking up the monotony a little are the majestic sounds of the microwave. The computer terminal is a necessary tool for most obstacles in the game, and the interface for it doesn't feel intrusive or out of place. The sound effects are fairly solid and satisfying, particularly when you open a door. Listen to this. Almost like the game is cheering you on with a wow every time you open a door and make a little progress. The gun sounds really powerful right off the bat too, and with every upgrade even more so. The level design is interesting, but the hallways leave a bit to be desired, bland with a side of snowy TV signal. Rooms deeper in the maze are presented in different colors, light blue, red, and finally dark blue. Each color change represents a jump in difficulty, and gives you a rough idea of how far you've gone. And then there's this.
Nothing to see here.
Zillion's gameplay is what you might expect if Metroid and Impossible Mission got together, had a love child, and asked Sega to raise it. It doesn't do either side of the spectrum better than the source material, but the ideas meld well to make for a pretty interesting romp. This is no Twitch platformer, but you do need to be fast on the trigger to deal with threats. There are a lot of times you enter a room and the enemies within are already trained on you, sometimes even shooting at you soon enough to push you back into the room you just came from. A bit frustrating, but it doesn't ruin the game. You wander from room to room shooting trash cans and stealing their secrets. And bread. Oh man, this is the best! In these canisters, you will also come across level-ups and gun power-ups. Level-ups will reflect on your characters as max health increases, as well as a full recovery to maximum health and jump height increases. Gun power-ups will do more damage, as well as let you kill the bigger, meaner trash cans. Most rooms have a locked door and a computer terminal. These doors are unlocked by entering the 4-character passwords found within the canisters inside the room. Ordered from left to right on the keyboard, M, heart, 8, a U with lines through it, fish, rabbit, the top of a key, 00, pretzel, and 0. At least that's how I referred to them as a kid. It took me entirely too long to realize that they're just single-digit numbers. Mostly. You'll need an ID card to access the terminals, and if you enter the correct password, the ID card will be returned to you. There are other input codes that will, however, keep your ID card, making them a somewhat limited commodity. If for some reason you run out of ID cards, you can head back to the mothership and get 1 card if you have none, as well as recover your health. Amy's such a sweetheart. There are some useful standard commands by entering 4 of a single digit. Ones will bring up a very limited map. You can see where you've been and the location of your ultimate goal, but as you near the end of the game, it doesn't feel terribly helpful. If you've been exploring everything and managed to miss something, you're in for one hell of a backtrack. 2s will shut down laser barriers. The animation freezes to let you know it's safe to cross. 3s will deactivate alarm sensors so you won't trigger a swarm of bargain bin robocops. 4s will stop the moving walkways. 5s will deactivate auto gun turrets. 3 and 4 are mostly useless, but you'll find yourself using 2 and 5 rather frequently. 6s and 7s are labeled as Warp A and Warp B. Both teleport you closer to the surface relative to your current position. The deeper you are, the further back you go. B generally won't take you as far as A. All 8s will set the base's self-destruct sequence in motion. All 9s will cancel that just in case you wanted to do a little more before taking on the final boss. All 0s, for some reason, turns the terminal into a suicide booth. I can't imagine a single scenario where this is a good idea. There are a couple of rooms that give you a secret message if you entered in them specifically, but it still seems like a weird choice. Aside from the final boss, there is technically only one enemy in the game, the robots. They do, however, have varying amounts of health and use different tactics, but there isn't anything to visually distinguish them from one another for quick identification. The jumping mechanics can be a little awkward, and trying to jump over mines will more often than not result in taking damage. This becomes less of an issue later in the game when you've powered up your gun to level 3, as it can hit mines that are on the ground while in the crawl position. Apple and Champ can be found within the red and dark blue sections of the base. Saving them from the deadly showers will allow you to switch characters on the pause screen. Now to pause it, there's one little interesting thing. This is the controller. See something missing? This is the pause button. This is the reset button. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to pause it and oops, game's reset. Sega, why couldn't you just put a pause button on the controller? Once you have all 3 characters and get them all to level 8, you're pretty much unstoppable, unless you're just really unlucky or bad at Zillion. Having one character at full health with full gun power makes the last boss kind of a joke, so having that 3 times almost isn't necessary, but will leave you feeling like quite the badass. After acquiring all of the floppy disks and the red ID card, you can cruise on through the foreboding room of no details to reach the supercomputer. These future bots really don't seem that advanced. 10 keys on the keyboard and the supercomputer is the size of a small house. Access the terminal and enter all 8s to start the self-destruct sequence countdown. Step back into the previous room and holy shit! Mutant cyborg space chicken. Where was this just a moment ago? Cyberfowl here is actually a pretty easy fight. Shoot his mouth while open and don't get hit by his fireballs. The timer is what makes it hard, as you have 5 minutes from the time of entering the command to defeat it and escape to the surface of Planet X. Fortunately, there are no more obstacles in your way. Laser barriers, enemies, mines, all gone. But you can't access computer terminals to use the warp commands. Hopefully you have some idea of where you've been going in the dark blue and red regions of the game, or you may eat up too much of your time backtracking and won't make it. While the game does give you a few continues, they won't do you any good at this point. If you don't make it out before the timer winds down, your adventure is over. However, if you've been paying close attention to your routes on the way in, this part is a breeze. After you've escaped and stepped back into the mothership, the crappy little 8-bit caliber ending runs with its half a paragraph of dialogue. You did it! And then see a speechless villain who looks to be just fine. You're given a little information on the main characters of the game. Roll credits. The game is beaten. There is no hard mode. There are no extras. You just have the satisfaction of knowing you've shown those microwaves and DOS boxes who's top dog. Before I wrap this video up, there's a little bit more I'd like to cover. Before the video game, Zillion was an anime. Not a great anime, but an anime just the same. Watching it filled in a few blanks about the game for me that I hadn't known about before. So as a fan of the game, an anime was kinda cool to see. 2 songs in-game were actually songs from the anime as well, and were translated very well from lyrical songs to chiptunes. But I wouldn't recommend you go out and buy the VHS tapes, like I did many years ago. I still haven't opened most of them, and the 2 I did watch were not anything impressive. That didn't stop Sega though. They had high hopes for this IP, going so far as to model the Master System's light gun after the Zillion gun. Check it out! Sega even got Opa Opa, known best for his role in the Fantasy Zone games, into the anime, albeit in a relatively small way, and as you may have noticed, he makes little appearances in the game as well. When all is said and done, after playing through the game with the most critical eye I've ever given it, Zillion is by no means the epic adventure that Castlevania and Metroid are. but it's a lot of fun and I do find myself going back to it every couple of years. I usually beat it, but even when I don't, I still have a lot of fun with it. I would say the game is definitely worth a shot. So guys, if you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you liked, let me know what you didn't like, bug me on Twitter, bug me on Facebook. I have a few more ideas for Retrommentations and I won't be sharing all of them, but in retrospect, my second one probably should have been my first. If you've got any games you'd like me to cover as a Retrommendation, please let me know. There's plenty of games out there I've never played, and plenty I own that I've yet to beat. Thanks for watching!